We're here with the Humankind, and we're talking about activeness. How to bring this enormity of juicy existence and soul energy that we are into these somewhat limited vehicles. And our next amazing guest here is Arcturus Ra, who is a contactee, a scientist, and an experiencer. And we're going to dive into each one of those elements now. Arcturus Ra, thank you so much for joining us here. I love you, brother.
Thank you.
Another wise man from Sedona. So tell me, let's get started right here and talk about contactee. Who would be the contactor?
I like your play of words. There's always something behind the scenes that's plotting to come out with a strategy of how to perturb the mind. The contactor is the energy of interest in development of my consciousness, as in human consciousness. As in the contacts that I've been having is predominantly Arcturian council, my future version of myself, like I'm educating myself through myself. In the Mayan calendar, it says that I'm guided by my higher self doubled. So I'm very in tune with my oversoul. And it is the interest of the oversoul to get this avatar in its original state according to factory programming or factory settings. You know when your computer fails, you have to go back to factory settings so the thing can reboot and can actually come back up.
Right.
So I believe that the human race it's part of a big play. And I can give you a seminar of 7 days about this story. The human race has fallen. The galaxy has fallen. As it's a long story of a very, very big experiment that comes down to, can consciousness that has risen inspire fallen consciousness to come back up, to come back home? So that's why we have a big play of, the reptilians, the Anunnaki, Sumerians, Draconians, influence, the fall, the intrigues, the politics, which cover a time span of 300 million years, roughly, the commercial interference of or inspiration of other dimensional existence and energies into building this level of consciousness. So the contactor is my oversoul from another timeline, as Hassani, observing me, and Arcturians, which I am part of, that I am an Arcturian soul, that their interest is to expand, amplify, and refine consciousness on any level, and to do that to the best of their ability, which also has a storyline where people say, I have to say this like this, you're familiar with the scientist Neil deGrasse?
Yes.
Yeah, we said like, okay, UFOs, contacts, we have 6 billion phones, why does nobody record directly ETs on their phone? And that will actually explain the fact that you cannot have them sitting on your couch and record them, because it's an interdimensional process, development of consciousness. So the linear way of thinking is not the approach to make that happen. Is our way of developing consciousness within the vessel, beginning with health and wellness in the vessel, as this is the base for the spirit. And if that's not intact, the spirit cannot be fully in. That's the problem that we've been having for millions of years, thousands of years, that we're patched beings, we're soul fractalized. We're fragmented, and we have to bring all the parts back. I mean, you love to play with words. This ascension game is actually an inscension game. Because the inscension is to get everything back that we have lost along those timelines and temporal wars and whatever, God knows what we have been in, to get into total recall, actually. Remember what it means to be human, to be you, man, to really, to remember, to put the pieces back together. And when you start digging within the self, besides reading and all this external stimuli, within the self, within the cell, it gets really fantastic.
Well, I would love to break it down a little bit here because you said a lot.
Break it down. Whatever you come, I can go. You know.
Well, I appreciate you being here.
Yeah, you inspire me with however you're asking. You know.
Oh,
so.
thank you, brother.
Yeah. So
you were contacted by the Arcturian Council on one level.
Yes.
And yet, before then, did you have that connection with your oversoul, or did you have that perception that your higher future self was somehow teaching you and guiding you along the way? Or, can you give us a sense of what the journey may have seemed like to you?
So every human, I feel, is a council, has a council. Every human is on Earth, is important, and is worthy. That's why they're here. Not everybody can be here. Like they said, they did the equation of what are the odds of being birthed out of a soul construct on this planet is like 1 to, like, I don't know, 1 billion or something, like, of possibilities of you coming here as a soul. It is very intricate and very special and a very, very powerful gift that we're here. I mean, me being here, it's such, I can tell you this, my German grandfather was in the Baltic Sea, World War II. 9 ships coming back home from the war. 8 sank. And ship number 9 was the one with my grandfather. So what are the odds of me being here? Not only that, then I'm born from a, you can say, terrible, terrible car crash where a truck hit our car. My mom was pregnant with me. And my father died, and my older brother died, and my mom almost died. So almost C-section because my mom was in a coma. So what are the odds, Like me being here by a hair, But somehow
and that hair seems to have left your head. I couldn't help it.
Yeah, with all of that stuff that we go through as souls, you lose something along the way.
I'm not one to talk.
Yeah, so call it mobile deodorant stick, So anyway. So you see how detailed that is that we are here. If one thing goes wrong, and I'm just talking one generation back, one thing skips or doesn't add up, you're not here.
It's true.
So we're very blessed to be here. Even when we earlier talked about breath, every breath that you allowed is a gift, in and out. And digest that, have that in your consciousness that you are allowed here. Because when there are higher forces, higher than government, MIB, all the stuff we want to talk about, when something goes into an absoluteness, as in next level, you're not changing the dial. You're not making any switches. You can do what you can while you're here with that allowance. And that is a lot of work. It can take thousands of lifetimes to figure this out.
Well, I'm inviting everybody in this lifetime right here, right now, who's watching, just to pause for a moment, because what you've said is really profound.
Yeah, absolutely.
In terms of the odds of any of us existing in this form.
Yeah.
It is kind of like winning the lottery on some level.
Yeah.
And yet, it's so taken for granted. It's so not acknowledged. And I'm just inviting in, as we are going to be focusing on activeness and taking this consciousness and energy that we are, which far transcends these physical bodies, and putting it into motion with this deeper level of gratitude and awareness of what a blessing it is that we get to be in this form.
Yeah. So, and what I found out digging in myself is, I went to psychics. I mean, as a child, I always had the itch to look for the occult. Again, guided by my oversoul through extraterrestrial contact, they put stuff on the table for me to look at and to see where the resonance is. So I remember when my grandma, when she was alive, my German grandmother, she must have activated me, which was one of a major activations, even though I had contact since I was like 3 years old, of which I can remember. She bought a book that was called Mysteries of the Universe. Mysterien im Universum. And it had these pictures, a Sasquatch, a Yeti, Loch Ness, UFO, Bermuda Triangle, Mayan calendar, Easter Island, unsolved like cultures that nobody knows where they're from, what are their practices, what's the mystery. And when I saw that book, and I was 11 years old on my birthday, I think it was 1984, it kind of struck a chord. Like I was like, this is interesting to me. Like all lights turned on. And I've since 11, now I'm 54, I was investigating the unexplained, what is not accepted by the consensus, the status quo of whatever alliance of scientists say this can't be or this can't be happening. Like, okay, if everybody is so allergic against topics that people find there's an energy current there, there's a response. Because if it's not important, nobody really cares. But the resistance was so strong. I was like, there must be something behind that. So I studied, like ancient aliens, ancient cultures, our influences, where does this come from? And then you find patterns, like I feel like I'm like an interdimensional forensics, like I'm like this galactic investigator shaman, where I was like, okay, let's see where the cultures and the religions talk the same. Where do the patterns match? And you find it in the Talmud, you find it in the Torah, you find it in the Quran, you find it in the Bible, where they're saying the same thing. And when you put these pieces together, you understand there's a storyline of a whole. So people say to me, so what are you, an atheist, a contactee experiencer? What are you? I would call myself an omnist. Because I believe everything has to do with everything. Everything is connected, and everything stems from one source. And it goes into levels where I also tell the people, like, don't try to imagine the infinite. That's foolish. That's why amoebas don't build bridges. The different job assignments for different development and stages in evolution, if that makes sense.
Sure. So let's take a step forward here in terms of connecting.
Yes.
Your connection with your higher self, over soul, and even off-planet influences like an Arcturian council.
Yes.
And how does that impact you as a scientist?
So me as a scientist is like I work in bioresonance, and it is the interest of my council and of my oversoul to find something that can inspire people to get into a higher vibratory state. And not with any physical and external teachings or trainings. It's more like, I have like these pendants, and you put it on, and now it's the first thing, feeling. Because experience is the ultimate.
Yes.
If you have experienced, I don't care who believes you or not, or whatever it is, whatever UFO, interdimensional, and life experience, this is a major program that influences your RNA, which is the scriptwriter for the DNA. So I go into feeling. I always say feeling is the new DNA. Like really, I ask people, even with storylines that you hear, take away from what I'm telling you, get into the word wizardry that's presented and the sound of my voice, and then feel deep within your heart, how does that feel for you? What's the feeling? Are you home? You feeling you're having a conversation? Or you feel like I'm trying to impose something on you that everybody must believe? Or am I sharing? And that's where I communicate and where I build a bridge. We're getting in resonance here. That's about bioresonance. So basic example, you take a potato from the acres into the kitchen, it'll rot in 4 days. It'll decay. But you put a potato in a root cellar, it can last for years. That's because of bioresonance. So we take an object out of its natural environment and it's out of resonance, it begins to wither. Well, that's what happened to us. And I'm trying to reestablish the connection between nature and the human, as in hue, as in light, man, and manifest, to come back to the original self of you. And basic sample would be I'd take somebody from Times Square, you know how hectic it is and was,
right,
and put them into the jungle of Kauai, in the Hawaiian island group, and sit you there for 1 hour, and then they measure that person. The brain finds an equilibrium, the hemispheres synchronize, your heart rate lowers, your body begins to recover. So what does that tell me? Bioresonance. I looked at trees. There are these African acacian trees in Hawaii. The natural way of growth in Africa for those trees, 90 years they've reached full maturity. In Hawaii, 20. Why is that? Bioresonance is higher. So what am I working with? These vorticular devices.
Yes.
So what's present in a holy place or a holy well? Why do we have people spontaneous healings? Why is rehab so great? Like the Niagara Falls, the Sedona, the canyons of Sedona. Why do people come here for healing? This is a powerful place here.
Yes, it is.
So the pyramid chamber in the Gizeh pyramid, Queen's chamber, the well of Lourdes in France. What are these places all having in common? Photons, negative ions, magnetic anomalies, tachyon energy, and scalar wave energy all meet in this focal point, resulting in your cellular memory going into healing modes that can be measured. So if the cell is introduced to a light frequency of 10 to the 15 hertz, the RNA begins to go into a self-repair mode. Science cannot explain why that is, but the Russians have found out. It's called self-aligning software. So when you introduce the right things to the body can actually follow. And this is where the magic lies of when people say CDs, as in superpowers like finding lost objects, psychokinesis, telekinesis, moving objects, clairvoyance, clairgustant, smelling, clairaudient. The more in tune you're with your vessel and your intracellular communication, the more magical you become.
So can you offer everybody either an exercise or a practice or something that people can do, and maybe it's just simply shifting your attention into such matters that can help to trigger more of that clair sentience in any form?
Okay, so the basic form before you get any gadgets and stuff is really, I call it audio-visual fasting. Off social media, phone on airplane. If you can, go into nature, beach or woods, no talk. And at least 20 minutes, like shut off, sit with you and everything that runs you, everything that's running, and you get clear. And the longer you do that and the more you do it, the better it is. I mean, I love doing that in Sedona when I go to my secret river spot, similar spot where I saw you. I go and sit in the Oak Creek River, right?
Yeah, Oak Creek.
I sit there by myself, just with everything. I say to people, the best meditation is the two words combined. Concentration and meditation is actually contemplation.
Okay.
This is the
I
merger.
like it.
Yeah. So sit and look at yourself and let all the stuff that's running you, all the egoic, all the things you want to do, the active, blah, blah, blah. It's like that. Bring a little bit of Zen Buddhism in, as in don't do anything, but sit with you, with everything, and let it run and observe yourself. Observe yourselves. And things come into play, and healing begins. That's the first level, basic level, before any external thing has been taught to you. Because I studied that, with what was mentioned early in the interview, with breathing techniques. And for some people it works, for some people it doesn't work. But interestingly, I went to Mount Shasta. Everybody begins to breathe different up there because it's forcing you. And the prana gets purer, so people have sightings and visions the higher you go into the mountain. So it's not all hypoxia, as in altitude sickness. Is the higher you go into different spheres. Same goes for diving. The deeper you go, you begin to see things, because the way you're breathing, the oxygen tank and the mixture becomes mildly toxic to a degree, but you're also it's getting otherworldly, because you're beginning to breathe in a different dimension. And you're breathing, same thing. I sat in the pyramid, in the Saqqara pyramid, and you can be as untrained as you want to be. The minute you sit there and you sit down, all of a sudden there's kicks in. It's this holding in between the breaths, and nobody knows why that is. There is a syncopated rhythm in holy places that forces you to get into an alignment what actually your cellular matrix knows.
Mm-hmm.
And according to the Gita and temple scripts, that the development of the bipedal form for galaxies to explore as a sentient beings through soul in a carbon-based carrier is 76 trillion years old. Now, can you fathom the knowledge that's within your cells? They say that the knowledge storage capacity of your DNA alone is, 19.6 billion years? So you are old as Isht. Way older than Earth's development in your cellular matrix. When they found fossils of that medicine plant ayahuasca, the carbon decay reading showed 700 million years. Now, can you imagine if you communicate with a plant that has 528 chromosomes? You have 46. What sentient intelligence is merging with you at what age, and how vast that archive is that can teach you? When we begin to fathom that, then a whole other knowledge possibility and section opens up for us. So this is what's coming in the ascension game for us to wake up to there's so much more, and it's way more fantastic than the illusions that we have created.
So how do you put your exactly? Okay, I was gonna breathe on it, but it's a lot, everybody, right?
Yeah, but digest,
Yeah,
it's in time,
yeah. And so here we are. We navigate life kind of as we know it, and as we are allowing it to develop and unfold the best we can. What do you do to keep your energy and moving in a way that is expansive and vibrant? Because our topic really is activeness, and how do we put this consciousness and this awareness into movement, through these vehicles?
Well, I do my own little sports. Like I swim in the river. I hike. I climb. I have a mono wheel, so I do off-roading. It's like kind of trick driving to keep my vessel and my balance and trained, which is also, I realize that total meditation is when I'm commuting out there off-road. It's like all these thoughts come and ideas and epiphanies while I'm traveling, because I'm moving through time and space. So and have something that you do in life that is your passion. And if it's collecting, stamps, anything where you have to have a focus to do it. So when I make my pendants, I have to fill each pendant with crystalline quartz sand, which is like nanoparticles. But every pendant has to be filled at a certain level, and then the lid has to be screwed shut, and it has to be precise. So it's tedious, monotonous work. But trust me, that turns you into like a monk-type super focused state. And that when in the kung fu movies, when the abbot tests the student that wants the master skill, but he's not ready, and then like in the Jackie Chan movies, and the abbot is like, okay, I want you to cook rice for these monks and bring water from the well for 2 years, and I watch you if you slip and burn the rice, or if you lose water. As they say, chop wood, carry water, enlightenment.
Right.
Chop wood, carry water. That doesn't stop. That's your grounding. So you don't. It's like some gurus develop these messianic God power complexes. Now I have all the knowledge. Now I can run the world, and it gets egoic. Go back to chopping wood and carrying your water. Keeps you humble, keeps you in your vessel, and this continues because the vessel still bleeds. We're still going through this. There's no way skipping this ascension plan. So I do these things that ground me. I'm triple air, so I have to make sure that my grounding is intact because I'm a born astronaut. Tethering here, So have a hobby, or turn your hobby into your job or your life's passion that grounds you, that forces you. You have to be here. So like riding my bike or driving a car, you have to be in the vessel. You can't daydream. You can't escape. You have to face this here, and don't dilute this experience being here. Fully accept what's happening and feel everything that's here. So I also allow myself to go crazy. Like I have the craziest ideas when how can I approach people with something that they use in everyday life? It comes from way out there. They don't understand, but how can I put that on them? So as of late, I have developed a scalar wave sneaker. So I was like, how do I take, everybody's into sneakers, you know, the companies and all the names. And I'm like, okay, I want this to be a therapeutic device that's not isolating you from Earth. So I'm thinking, letting all this oversoul stuff come in. I'm like, okay, I want to put a magnetic soul in there. I want to put crystalline substance and bioresonant crystals in you can say in the tongue of the shoe, so you have the resonance on your feet like as you walk the beach, and a grounding chip that actually brings the resonant frequency from the earth back into the shoe. And I've developed it successfully, and people go like, and the footprint of the soul is the flower of life, basically. So I'm allowing myself with the most craziest idea to go out there and bring it here. And it can be a practical application to help you to ground yourself, spirit in the body, wellness.
I love that. Yeah.
Brings balance back into the body. You're more bioresonant with earth and connecting people. And I'm thinking about that for sanctuaries or homes and beds, showers, paneling, flooring, everything reconnecting you with natural elements.
Oversoul through the undersoul.
Yeah.
I couldn't help it.
Yeah. So bring it in as crazy as it is. You know, I'm thinking of a shower cabin that's Shungite paneled with a photonic water filter. So you ionize your body and you get the electrons through the earth, through the Shungite panels in the shower. So at some point I'll build it. You know what? You have to.
That makes a lot of sense, also, because our skin is our largest organ.
Yes.
Right, and we can
Yes.
absorb
Yes.
we all absorb through the skin.
Yes, absolutely. So I'm thinking, let's go crazy. I mean, why not have cars with flower of life rims? So the particular energy spins on the highway, and we're beginning to bless the way people commute with light frequencies and turning our cars into less of a polluting system. I built a fuel diviner that can also do that, so you have less pollutants coming out, blessing your car, blessing the structure, and appreciating that what's actually is unconditional love is that your vehicle takes you wherever you need to go without question, without opinion. That's part of unconditional consciousness that's there. So bringing all that back in and being more precise with what is really needed. You know, I saw this meme once where you saw like a grocery store, and then it said, "What would Jesus buy?"
Right.
So it's like, okay, let's rethink what are you buying with consciousness? Yeah.
Right.
You spoke about money, currency.
Yes.
The currency. An exchange of energy, you know. So money is not the root of all evil. It's the corrupt mind is the root of all evil that does the corrupt things with whatever tool it has. Whatever you want to blame. We blame money. Now we're blaming AI. There's always something to blame but us. You know, quintessentially, it is always us. It is always us. You point the finger at somebody. The sky will listen, and 3 fingers point back at you. Remember that, you know? So it's always you are responsible. Having the ability to respond. So
That's
what
right.
is your response going to be, positive or negative? Choose your side and be wise.
Beautiful. So as we're kind of possibly winding up shortly here, I also want to talk about that last piece that you mentioned of being or that I mentioned in describing you as being an experiencer. Why don't you just, if you can tie it all in and what you've experienced, and also invite that in for what, as we start to put our lives and souls into a heightened state of activity in these vehicles, how your experiences can really inform that and how we can direct our new experiences.
So let's go into the fantastic. So I always had dreams about being in different lives, being in different bodies, having the same memory or shared memory. So I'm like, is my soul fractalized? Am I being abused? I mean, side project is super soldiers. Some people are abused in other wars and other timelines and get reinserted back into their body. It gets really, really fantastic. So let's go through my story as I investigate with a psychic. And my third eye was partially open but not fully open. So I had a psychic that kind of, and this is where I say allow yourself to go really, 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 really crazy and see what happens. And she said that she went into the astral realm, and that lady was an angelic healer, had nothing to do with galactics. I changed her entire spectrum coming into her sessions. I'm laying on the bed. She grabs my head, and she goes into trance, and then she says she found, and bear with me, a USB cable hooked up in my crown chakra being siphoned by an insectoid race in a dimension that's not accessible from here. But she could go there. So she went into that ship and asked the crew of that ship, so who gave you consent to be in that energy body, to siphoning this energy from this soul? And they were like, oh, nobody. So she's like, okay, so I hereby declare clarity, and the consent is not given to remove that cable from this being. And they were all kind of like upset, but when the thief is caught, the thief is caught. So the cable was removed, and after that session, my psyche kind of went open. My third eye opened way more. I could see more. I got way more intuitive.
Got better reception.
Yeah. And then she said that she was told by my Arcturian council that I left the part on planet Maldek before it exploded. I was a scientist there, and I was trapped in a basin in golden boots. This is some, symbology, metaphors, whatnot. So she flew up there, called Archangel Michael in, and did the release of that scientific self to myself. And I kid you not, when that part returned, I felt like my IQ increased by 30%. So there are things that can be done when you dig into the essence of the self. And the last thing was that she saw a canal from my heart to my root chakra was shut. There was a door that was closed. She can see the door was closed, and there was a well at the base, and there was a boar sitting at the well. So we know symbology to a degree that the boar represented the ancestral lineage in history, and it was blocking the passage. So when she removed that block and reconnected and was spiritually rebuilding a golden corridor from my heart to my root chakra, that boar flipped out because it wasn't of use anymore. I couldn't guard the entrance anymore and dissolved. And this was my ancestors, were somewhere in their lineage thousands of years back, somebody was very pissed. And all the geniuses and inventors and all of that, you're not getting anything. You ought to be broke. There's nothing coming. And when she removed that, my abundance with me being in my purpose, this is all you have to really. It's like an alchemy how to design yourself.
Got to be an alignment.
I can't sell you hair shampoo, can I?
You won't have much luck at it. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. So I have to be in purpose for what I'm here to do with this planet, as in replenish and redirect light. That removal resulted in me. I came up with the invention of photons, realizing how to capture photons from the vacuum. It's a whole other scientific story. And my sales picked up very little. The flame started igniting in that department. And I stayed there ever since, and it was forever flowing ever since. That's the blessing, even through COVID, even more so people are more health conscious, and that is my grail. That's my grail, and that helps people. And what makes me happy is that people feel a difference or can make a difference, or they're activated into doing different things without me having to tell them, yogic practices or different techniques or things you got to all mentally, you got to compute and you got to learn and you got to repeat. There's nothing for you to do but just be presence.
So how can people get access to you and some of your devices?
So my website is ra-key.com. And you click on store, and then you see everything that's listed. And have fun, enjoy, experiment, and go in. I have tinctures, I have oils, I have creams, everything to enlighten and bring more light to the state of being with natural elements.
Well, thank you so much for being in your alignment and inviting us all to a higher frequency.
Absolutely.
Deeply grateful.
I enjoy this. The thing is also, as a psychic said to a person that consulted me and the psychic and what I do and why these things work, she said the main essence why this thing is so highly resonant, not just because of the science, Ra loves what he's doing. He's really in love with that. In the purity of his heart, it's undiluted and pure, and that's why these things actually emanate. And that is what we're spreading here.
And on that note, let's all breathe in our own purity, and we're going to take a brief break. So let's breathe it in. Ra, thank you again so much.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely. And thank you all. Please stay tuned. We have Yara-Leen coming up next on this edition of Activeness with Humankind.
Yeah, and don't forget Arcturus Ra on YouTube and ra-key.com website. Find me there.